It has been an incredibly energized day. The amount of discussion has been quite incredible. I will try and summarize some of the themes with the help of Kathy. But there's one thing I want to mention, which is the 3 C's that came up over and over again, and that was collaboration, communication, and coordination. And I just thought last night's extraordinary event was really a role model for how you do that, how you bring everybody together. I've never actually been in such an environment before where everybody was there, people affected by MS, clinical and basic academics, industry colleagues, donors, and again, the level of discussion and engagement was incredible. And today is much the same. When we were putting the program together, we put a huge amount of time in for discussion, more than any meeting I've ever helped to organize, and it simply wasn't enough. Either that or the chairs were really, really bad at trying to keep to time. Perhaps a combination of the two. And I also thought the way we switched science with more pragmatic approaches worked really well, because sometimes, although we all love science, sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming and exhausting. So I just want to make a couple of very quick points, and this will literally take about 3 minutes, Bruce, because I think Bruce's blood pressure is actually now reaching dangerous heights. There was absolute agreement at the beginning of the meeting that we needed a strategic and global approach to curing MS. Great, very ambitious. But figuring out how we were going to do this, and particularly the governance structure and the prioritization of initiatives, was really tricky. Prioritization is really important. It's very difficult. We rarely do it because we don't agree on priorities. We did, however, agree that we have to engage people with MS more deeply in research and design, and we must avail of their expertise. We also agreed we must retain bottom-up innovation and also invest in team science and, of course, translational research, and that we would benefit from implementation science and, of course, engagement of policymakers. When we went on to talking about stopping MS, the point we're all aware of is that MS declares itself clinically at different time points, and we have to have a better understanding of the underpinning biology. And that, for me, was the key point throughout the whole day, our understanding of the underpinning biology, whether it's around treatment trials or course descriptors. And Tanya outlined that very nicely in the Lancet Neurology paper from earlier this year. Mention of needing to combine validated metrics with a risk score for early detection of MS, and also, of course, the power in big data and long-term investments. One of the points that came up was constraints about sharing data, but it's quite clear that some people in the room can manage to do this extremely well, whereas others can't. So obviously one thing we could do is look at best practice and look at how we can do this for the entire group. The collaborative models after lunch, plenty of money is a great idea. They can create large-scale initiatives, public-private partnerships in a pre-competitive environment. That was really clear, as were the opportunities for big data. I thought the table discussions were great because people were very intelligent. Somebody said there's too many intelligent people in this room, that's why we can't keep it to time. And there may be, again, some truth in that. One was that our collaboration should address questions no one else will answer, and that questions that actually require collaboration. We need a clear focus. Focus is so important and again, really challenging. We need consistent funding and support for infrastructure, open science, data management plans. Transparency came up over and over again, and it's, again, not something that's always quite so easy. We need to establish priorities for the pathways and set reasonable goals and milestones. And we should think of early priorities. A point made earlier, low-hanging fruit. What can we do now? A lot of the things we talked about were 5 or 10 years on. We need to move things forward now. So what are today's priorities, medium term and then long term? So, I mean, these are recurring themes. Just moving quickly to the last section, I have to be really careful here. So the beautiful talk, all the talks were fabulous. Promising, I'm watching Catherine, who's particularly careful, but still a long way to go. And I know I said this 10 years ago, I was nearly killed by Henry 15 years ago. And there's still quite a way to go. And I think we need to, as was mentioned, I think, Ari, that we need to face up to that. Issue of dynamic biomarkers for remyelination, not just limited to the lesion, but perhaps outside. repair may look a lot like stop, which is a point several people have made. And we may need to think more broadly about repair and neuroprotection, a little bit more outside the box. So I think we'll hear many of these themes again tomorrow, and I just want to make two observations before we stop. The first is that there's no question, and this is back to Howard's point earlier, but that sustained investment in biology and mechanisms over the years has made a huge impact on the landscape. We wouldn't be where we are, et cetera, et cetera. So we do need to think about how we've got to where we are. I think that's a really important point, although sometimes we're not always sure how we got to where we are. And then the second is deciding on priorities, and particularly those we can address sooner rather than later, is absolutely critical. So overall, a very productive and engaged day. I think we deserve some time out, perhaps something to eat, and certainly something to drink. And now, Bruce, thank you very much for your attention.